We drove through that big storm.
Drove through a huge snowstorm.
It wasn't as bad as I expected, though, honestly.
No, the roads were good.
Yeah.
We did see an upside-down car.
Yeah, and the roof was a little, made me worry. There were 2 stops on the way out and 2 on the way back, I think.
Yeah.
As far as accidents go. So we drove out to Rifle, west of Vale, west of Eagle.
Vale, 50 minutes maybe from
Grand Junction.
Grand Junction.
Yeah. To play at the Ute Theater in Rifle.
Beautiful old theater. We were just talking on the way to dinner. I love those old theaters that used to be, I mean, they're so old that they were like real playhouses with actual plays and probably comedians and, and then they got converted to movie theaters because that was the entertainment that was in. And then now some of them have been converted back into concert venues, and I just love playing them because they always have all the history and
this one had a big stage and there was a dance floor in front of us, which is always good. Vic said he specifically requested room for people to dance, which is, I think that's a good call at anywhere we play.
We can't be an all-seated show. I mean, we can.
I mean, we're a theater show now.
Right.
And some people are always going to want to sit, but some people are always going to want to dance. And it's so awkward when we've played theaters where the ushers are like, hey, get back in your seat.
They're blocking the first 5 rows
dancing,
of people.
Exactly, they're dancing in front of the first row of people who paid the extra money.
Or
they're dancing in the aisles kind of awkwardly.
For the premium tickets. Amazing staff. Unbelievably nice.
Yeah.
I mean, just like
Patrick,
Troy, Wayne, the manager. Krista was the LD. She did amazing. That's one thing, you're getting it right from a sound guy or a lighting director, LD, when they ask for a set list.
Yeah, and ask, if you have any special requests.
Yeah, and she came over and was like, hey, can I get a set list? And can you tell me what's going on here? And I was like, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And here's the acoustic thing. And maybe do the blackouts here and there and, whatever. Like, we don't have a specific thing, but it was great that she wasn't just going to be like, oh, I'll do whatever,
Yeah. And you know what? I think I am would it be anti-misogynistic? Meaning that when she introduced herself as the lighting designer, I was like, ooh, it's going to be good. It's a woman.
Yeah.
Any woman who succeeds in a male-dominated industry, I'm automatically like, oh, you must be really good.
Yeah.
Because you have to work out hard to get there.
And women just tend to slack off less. I mean...
Yeah, we do.
It is true that guys will phone it in more often than women do. Women are scrupulous about...
Because we know we're being watched, I guess.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's
and
it.
If we the stakes are higher. If we screw up, we're representing the gender. And, we're going to be...
Yeah, I never really think that through as much. I mean, I try to be as encouraging as I can. I kind of was tripping over that because whether it's students or people who are working in the field and maybe have been in the field longer than me even, but at the same time, I try to be very encouraging because you're right. It is very lopsided. It's mostly a guy's thing. Yeah. I've seen it get way better, though. It's way better. Guys are way better about it. Even the sound guys and the tech guys and,
I wonder if the whole Me Too and, that's a different topic, but I wonder if just, the general awareness has risen.
I think the awareness has risen. The other thing that, it's starting to be that a lot of people working these shows are most of my life, the people doing those jobs were 10, 20, 30 years older than me, and now it's starting to be... everyone doing those jobs is our age or younger, and so it might just be a different generation.
Right, yeah.
But people do make an effort to be more inclusive, and, it's not as boys clubby. There's less gross jokes. that used to be a staple of the whole thing, and that doesn't really exist anymore.
I feel lucky.
Not that I was ever comfortable with it. I was never that to me. That's not my thing. But like, you know, you had to smile and you know, just to get along. But yeah, I feel like it's a very different climate.
So the whole show was great,
right?
And we were just saying right before we started the podcast, like, what do we have to say about it? Another great show.
I know, we're kind of getting spoiled.
Our expectation now is fairly hot audiences, warm. This audience was hot. This one was ready to go as we walked on stage. They were cheering as we walked out. But we're starting to expect now that like every show is going to be great, because every show has been great for a while, for like over a year now. Yeah.
There just hasn't been a bad one. Well, there have been shows that we felt like we did bad. Maybe not you, but I know
moments, not entire shows.
I felt like I've had bad shows. Julian has been really mad at himself after a couple of shows. I mean, the crowd response is amazing. They don't know, but yeah, breaking down the show. Did you pick up from me? Because I always do a thing with a water or a beer or whatever I have, and when I walk out, I like do a wave thing, and I thought I saw you do that when you came out. Did you?
I didn't pick that up from you, though.
Yeah.
Vic wanted me to do that, like, when we first started putting this together as a show, like when he started kind of like drilling down and picking small things to improve, that's one of the first things. I mean, I think he wanted, back when it was Ted, he wanted us to start coming out and be like, hey, you know. So I've been doing that pretty regularly.
I just do a cheers when I walk out.
Oh, okay.
And that's usually when the first yells start.
You get them warmed up for us.
I mean, precisely 15 seconds before you come out. Yeah, no. No, I just thought it was funny. You did like a similar thing like in the second set.
Okay.
But anyway.
Speaking of the second set, my I know you were going to say something.
No, get it.
Here's my biggest mistake of the whole show was that I mixed up your whiskey glass and my beer glass. Because they were both those little plastic cups that are about this big.
Yeah, because it's a tiny amount.
And I kept thinking like I want to wet my whistle and get some, liquid in my mouth. And there were just two cups, each of which had like this much liquid in them. One was a little browner than the other.
Yeah.
I had taken the Modelo, I think, so it was kind of dark.
Yeah, it was the darker. Yeah.
And I got a little drunker than I planned. It wasn't too bad. I was taking tiny sips, but you wondered where your whiskey.
Well, I looked back and I was like, man, did I drink that? Because I don't remember.
I just kept grabbing the wrong glass. Anyway, it didn't actually have any effect on the show. I didn't feel like I got drunk.
No. I was saying something to you about this. It's funny that you didn't realize this, because the end of Rhiannon, which on Rhiannon we do we really stretch it out, and it's actually pretty faithful to a live from 1978 Fleetwood Mac thing that's on YouTube, and we just kind of looked at how they stretch it out, and the ad-libby parts, you don't necessarily do the exact notes, but you're kind of basing it on... and it winds up being 7, 8
At least. I counted as 2 songs in the set.
Yeah, it's 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah.
But the applause break, and it was funny that you didn't notice this, because you had to shut it down. Like, that applause break could have gone on for like 5 minutes. Like, Ryan and I were looking at each other going like that's not like it crested. Like you get a sense of audiences where
it'll go to a certain point.
Yeah, and it's like a wave, and then it like crests, and then it falls, and you have as a performer after a while, you get a sense of like, oh, that's the top of the, and it got up to the top, and it wasn't going down. And that's when Ryan and I looked at each other, and we were like, oh. And you literally walked up to the mic, and you were like, okay, like.
Man, it is so much fun to be a part of something that goes this well. It's this successful.
Yeah.
It is really fun.
Well, and I feel great too, and I think we should do more of it. Like, it's great going to places that don't often get shows like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the Youth Theater does a great job of booking, and they have a really cool calendar and whatever, but they don't necessarily get that kind of show very often from as far away as Denver. And And it's great to go someplace like that. Like the number of people that later were like, "Oh my gosh, thank you for coming here."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I talked to quite a few people on the show.
And really nice. It just makes you feel great, like you've
it's like you've done something good.
Yeah, when it's completely selfish, we're just we're just having fun. But
I know.
We're like, thank you for letting us come to your town and have fun. Like, yeah. And then we hung out in the hotel lobby afterwards, and that was fun. Gosh, what else went on this week? Oh, we had to rush back from that so you could do a bass gig.
Yep, I played with Jenny Shawhan at the Glenmore Country Club, which is a super chill gig. It was normally she has a dinner gig there, so it's background dinner music.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This one was a wine tasting. She said sometimes she shows up and she's not doing dinner, she's doing a special event, and she never knows in advance.
Wow.
If it's a special event or not. But we were still basically background music. And it was super chill. It was just so easy. It was like, she's so used to playing by herself that she would just start the song and then the drummer and I would figure out when to come in.
Yeah, we talked about that. I've done gigs like that.
Yeah.
Also on bass.
Oh, okay.
Where, so it's singer, guitarist, and singer.
Mm-hmm.
And they normally play by themselves, and then sometimes they hire a band, and you're just kind of like, well, you do your solo show, and we'll
fill in where
we'll join when. Yeah.
And it went great. I got lost during one bridge of one song.
Oh, one of the originals.
One of the originals.
Yeah.
But I felt like I did pretty well. I charted everything, even though she provided charts, I recharted everything in numbers. So I converted all of her charts to numbers.
Right, because you said that, as it turned out, some of them were not in the keys that they were charted in.
I don't know if it was that or if I didn't. I mean, some of them I didn't chart off of her charts. I just listened to it and charted it.
Oh, right.
So there's every chance that I didn't use her chart and I charted it in the original key and didn't think to check her stuff.
She doesn't do it in that key.
But there were a few songs that weren't in the keys that I had charted, but I didn't chart by key. All I did was write key of E, and then it was numbers from then on. So I just had to figure out where we were and then play the numbers from there. So
right.
It was not a big deal in the least, which was super cool. So I feel like my little islands of knowledge are starting to connect on bass. Everything's coming together.
Yeah, keeps coming together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we rushed back. You did that show.
Mm-hmm.
I spent most of Saturday in the yard cleaning up all of the branches.
Oh, we came home and had no power.
We had no power, no internet, because half a dozen pretty big branches, one of them's good 8 inches in diameter. In Colorado, you get very heavy snow in the springtime sometimes, and it's very wet, and it's extremely heavy, and it sticks to the trees. It didn't really stick to the ground.
Right. Well, and the trees have leafed out by now. So, so they collect a ton of heavy snow, and a lot of trees around Denver broke. I mean, there were 800 power outages.
Yeah.
50,000 people affected. So we didn't have power for 2 days, which also meant that we didn't want to use...
yeah.
So we're on well water here, which means that we only have water if there's a pump.
Right.
Now, the pump does pump up to a little storage tank, so it's not like we had zero water, but we didn't want to, overuse the water because we didn't know when it would run out. So basically no water, no heat.
Yeah.
And it got down to almost freezing.
Yeah.
And no electricity and no cable.
Yeah, so it was a rough weekend with everything going on. So I spent most of Saturday in the yard cutting up my arms. Are super tired from...
You did some more of that today, too. It's taking you days to...
It's taken, a little bit of time, 3 days. Got a huge pile of firewood out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, and then finally finished up Ipecac, Westward's Best New Band of 2022. Yeah, we finished up 2 songs for them. We had a mixing thing. It was really interesting because we were talking about... it's such a funny thing how people hear stuff differently when it's their music versus how they hear it with every other song they've ever heard in the world.
Right.
And the things they'll pick out when it's their stuff, and you're like, every other record in the world sounds like that. like there was a part, and I'm not being critical or making fun or anything, but there's a part where they were saying like, oh, it just feels like it gets quieter for a minute, and then when it comes back in, it's like louder. And it's like, yeah, that's built in so that it's exciting when you move from one part to another. It's not supposed to be this static, and every song you've heard in your life isn't this exact same level of dynamic. It moves. But when it's your own music, you kind of you're hearing it differently. Mm-hmm. But they're a absolutely wonderful group of people and really did some amazing stuff. Isabel from that band
she's such a cool singer.
Such a cool singer. Total rock star.
And she's what, 16?
16, 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. There's a lot to, there's a long way to go from there. But, man, but she's got something.
She's got enough crazy.
Yeah. She's wild. Really, really wild.
And you figured out a cool thing on the mixing side. You sidechained the bass to the guitar and the vocals?
Right. Because in that band, they have the bass player uses a lot of distortion on the bass, a lot of guitar style distortion on the bass, not normal bass overdrive kind of stuff. And wants the bass to be super loud in the mix, like as prominent as the guitars, if not more prominent than the guitars. And that's kind of like a non-negotiable. So what I figured out to do was something that tons of other people have done. I just hadn't ever done it on a rock mix, at least. I was sending the vocals and the snare drum over to a multi-band compressor that was compressing, not just turning down the whole thing, so that when the vocal was getting sent over to the compressor, it's not just turning the bass down when the vocal starts, which is one trick you might use. Because it's multi-band, it's turning down the frequencies of the vocal in the bass. So the bass doesn't get quieter, it just loses some of those frequencies, and it lets that vocal feel like it's still sitting on top. And the snare, I could not get the snare to punch through, so I just sent the snare over there too. And so every time the snare would hit, those frequencies of the snare drum would get yanked out of the bass really quickly. Mm-hmm. And if you did it too much, it got phasey and it got weird. But you could do it a little bit to where it would just let all of those kind of raucous, because everybody in that band, they're a rock band. So everybody's playing full bar, so getting everything loud when everyone's playing at full whatever was just difficult. But yeah, so that's something they do a lot in EDM and stuff where
you can kind of feel that pulse.
Pulse, and where they're really trying to, get like say the kick drum to like jump out, so they'll side chain everything else to that kick drum. So when the kick drum hits, it pulls everything else.
Okay,
back.
I need to learn how to do that.
Yeah, it's Phil.
Yeah.
And Blake Corley, who have done a bunch of EDM records. They do that all the time, and they'll hear mixes I've done, and they're like, dude, what are you doing to sidechain the bass to the kick? And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I never do that. You're like, why would you need to do that? And this mix, I finally needed to do that. So it's not an original trick is my point, but it was a kind of a cool thing, and it just worked like instantly.
What I thought was cool about it was that you're not just sidechaining, but you're just cutting out a frequency hole.
Right.
For whatever instrument is giving that sidechain command or signal.
Right, yeah. And then so when the snare's not hitting, the bass gets those frequencies back. Mm-hmm. Say those consonant frequencies. It's a lot of the consonant.
Which that bass is going to have more of since he's distorting.
He's distorting and he's playing fingers down. Right. He's slapping the strings against the fretboard. And
so
all
lots
at the same time. Lots of, kind of constant 16th notes. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those frequencies, which the snare drum has, because the snare drum's going chack, chack. Yeah. The bass is, but it just pulled some of that out of the bass when the snare drum hit and then gave it right back. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll try it in the future. Gosh, what were we going to say? There was one more thing we were talking about.
Oh, no. I met Pat Bruno and Angelina, his daughter Angelina, So Pat Bruno is the owner of A Music Plus, which is a DJ and wedding band company that booked the first wedding band, well, the only wedding band I've ever started, but the first band that I was lead in, co-lead. So we've stayed in touch over the years because the Fever started in 2009. So I think he was booking us in 2010 or 2011. And anyway, he wanted to meet me. He wanted his daughter to meet me because she's 14 and is showing a lot of promise in a lot of creative fields. Videography, photography, and music. And we just had lunch. I showed her the studio. She met you. She's probably going to do the teen band this summer.
I'm sure that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is going to be an all-star crew in the teen band this summer.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All-star female crew.
All-star female crew.
Yeah. Lillian.
Monster. Lillian's literally a tiny monster.
I know.
Already.
Yeah.
But then who else?
Quinn, my student who had the lead in her musical this year.
Also monster.
Callie, who... student of mine and student of Kristen. She takes piano from Kristen and a voice from me. And she won some songwriting contest recently. So great songwriter, 15 or something.
Super cool.
And then Angelina, Pat's daughter, who I haven't heard sing or play, but you can just tell she's smart.
Yeah.
She's very cool.
Yeah, totally. Extremely cool. Like surprisingly okay with like having conversations with three random, her dad and two random adults.
Yeah.
Like she
she was really comfortable. I mean, we hit it off, and she rides horses too. She does dressage.
Oh, yeah.
So she told me about that, and she's just interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting person. So, yeah, just had had lunch with them and talked about the music life and pointed them towards this podcast. I was like, if you want to know more about the music life, here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Yeah, isn't it weird how connections just go on and on?
They do. Well, speaking of that, and this isn't musical, but connections, we just got home now from dinner with my friend Lee Taylor, who I met in like 1998. I was living in Florida.
Wow.
So this was after my first job out of college. So I worked for a banking software company in Florida for the first 2 years after I graduated. And then my boss at that company was going to do a startup, but he couldn't hire away from the company because he would get in trouble. So he told those of us who he wanted to hire into the startup to quit our job and work contract for 2 years before we would go join him. So we all did that. But this was the .com heyday, so there was no trouble finding jobs. I mean, I was fending off jobs.
Yeah.
I was telling, contracts that I only have 5 or 10 hours a week to give you. And they're like, fine, you're a programmer. Anyway, one of my contracts was Lee. So he was doing a startup in San Francisco at the time. And I don't know how we got connected, maybe some job board or something. Huh. And he hired me sight unseen all the way across the country in Florida. And then I went out to San Francisco to go to an Underworld concert with my coworker Rich, because Underworld wasn't coming to the East Coast. And that's when I met Lee in person.
Wow.
We stayed in touch getting close to 25 years now.
Yeah, all that time.
Oh my gosh.
Wonderful guy.
Yeah. Anyway,
really fun.
Connections certainly.
Yeah, it's I wish I would have been better about that / understood the power of that / hadn't moved all around the country every 3 to 5 years for most of my life. Yeah, because those connections are just so, Oh, and I had to text you, different topic. What? Mm-hmm. Getting a little radio play.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a very little radio. One time.
the Locals Only show.
The Locals Only show.
I was thrilled.
Yeah, that was so fun.
Yeah, I wish I'd seen that tag on Facebook last night so we could have listened.
Yeah, right. No, I would have loved to have heard that over the radio. You always
It's always weird to think a lot of people are probably hearing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And from a mix perspective, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
That's a weird advantage I had back in the old days when I was even just learning to mix in Tallahassee, was our stuff was getting on the radio a lot. So I was hearing my mixes on the radio a lot.
Oh.
which most people don't get to do until you're like doing very big bands. And we were not big, but we were on the local radio and even got some outside of the locals play. So I would do mixes and then hear it on the radio and go, oh, wow, that's not coming across the way I thought it would. And it was a weird advantage to get to hear some of that stuff early on that doesn't exist for a lot of people for whatever reason. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, getting late.
Yeah, getting tired.
Yeah, it's like a switch. It's just someone...
I know. I felt it after the show at the Ute. I don't know. What were we doing? Sitting... I think I was sitting...
we were waiting to check in. No. You were right. We were still at the theater loading out.
Okay. And I had already loaded up, and I was just waiting for you. And I just, I felt my whole body go... I literally felt like a part of my brain fell asleep. Like, not all of the thought processing was still there.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's coming, so this is it.
Thanks for listening and watching.
Yeah. See you guys next week.